Recorded Books and RB Digital present The Code Economy, A 40,000-Year History by Philip E. Auerswald. Narrated by L.J. Ganser. Introduction. Technology equals recipes. A quote from Julia Child, My Life in France, 2006. The ingredients for bread were always the same: flour, yeast, water, and salt. But the difficulty was that there were 10,000 ways of combining these simple elements. Every little detail was important, we learned: the freshness of the yeast, the type of flour, the time of rising, the way one kneaded the dough, the amount of heat and moisture in the oven, even the weather. The code economy describes the evolution of human productive activity from simplicity to complexity over the span of more than 40,000 years. I call this evolutionary process the advance of code. Our modern conception of code, programs run on digital computers, is just the latest incarnation. Code is in fact much older. How, one might ask, have we humans managed to get where we are today, despite our abundant failings, including wars, famines, and a demonstrably meager capacity for society-wide planning and coordination? We have survived and thrived by developing productive activities that evolve into regular routines and standardized platforms, which is to say, we have survived and thrived by creating and advancing code. How is this process evolutionary? In the economy, raw materials are like diatoms, amoebas, or plankton in the biological food chain, whereas standardized platforms are like complex multicellular organisms. As code advances, higher-level technologies feed on more fundamental technologies. In much the same way, more complex organisms feed on simpler organisms in the food chain. Platforms provide essential structures for the code economy. The infrastructure that underlies a city is a standardized platform. Written language is a standardized platform. The Internet is a standardized platform. Human civilization has thus advanced through the creation and improvement of code, which is built on layers of platforms that accumulate like the pipes and tunnels that lie below a great city. The microeconomics you learned in college was generally limited to the what of production, what goes in and what comes out. This book is about the how inputs are combined to yield outputs. In other words, it is about how ideas become things. Here's an example. You are baking chocolate chip cookies. You have arrayed before you the required ingredients: 1 cup of butter, 1 cup of white sugar, 1 cup of brown sugar, 2 eggs, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of hot water, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and importantly, 2 cups of chocolate chips. These items, 30 minutes of your own labor, and access to the oven, bowls, and other durable equipment you employ, constitute the inputs into your production process. The work will yield 24 servings of 2 cookies each, which constitute your output. From the perspective of standard microeconomic theory, we have fully described the production of chocolate chip cookies. Capital, labor, and raw material inputs combine to yield an output. However, as is obvious to even the least experienced baker, simply listing ingredients and stating the output does not constitute a complete recipe. Something important is missing: the directions, how you make the cookies. The how goes by many names: recipes, processes, routines, algorithms, and programs, among others. While I will employ each of these names at different points in this book, I use the word code throughout to refer to the how of production. The essential idea is that the what of output cannot exist without the how by which it is produced. In other words, production is not possible without process. These processes evolve according to both their own logic and the path of human decision-making. This has always been true. The economy has always been at least as much about the evolution of code as about the choice of inputs and the consumption of output. Code economics is as old as the first recipe and the earliest systematically produced tool.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?